City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
Good evening and welcome to our April 23rd regular City Council meeting, and I would like to call it to order. Joanna, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Downing? Or I'm sorry, Mayor Dodge. Here. Sorry about that. Mayor Pro Tem Escobar?
Here.
Councilmember Sowers?
Here.
Councilmember Leidy?
Here.
Councilmember Downing?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Whitman?
Here.
Councilmember Duran Mollica?
Here.
Councilmember Wilford?
Here. We love you, Joanna. Do not even worry about that. I know you will. Would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Jim, is there any response to citizen inquiry tonight?
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Nothing tonight. Are there any agenda additions and deletions from the council?
Yes, I have one. And I would like to, under discussion items, discuss the Huron Street fencing project that I am so adamant about.
Okay, Huron Street fencing.
Yeah, that's the southeast corner on
Right.
Huron.
Okay, that's added as item C to the agenda?
Yes, that'd be.
And yes, Mayor, can I please remove item D under the consent agenda, CR 62, for discussion?
Okay, thank you. Okay. First, we begin with an interview. We have Ben Cathcart interviewing for the Youth Commission. Come on forward. Hello. Hi, Ben.
Hi.
So don't be scared because we don't bite. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in joining the Youth Commission?
Okay. Hi, I am Ben Cathcart. I'm 12 years old. I'm interested in the Youth Commission because I want to get involved in volunteer work and things like that, and being involved in how important the youth is in our community and what they can do to change the community and what effects we have.
Okay, do you mind if the council members ask a few questions?
No, I don't mind.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions.
I don't have a question, but thank you. Thank you for volunteering. Age 12 is a perfect time to start, and you'll see some of these high school seniors that are leaving, and they've had a great experience. You'll have a great experience. Thank you.
I was going to say the same thing. Go ahead, Becky.
I just wanted to ask you if you've had a chance to attend the meetings and gotten a real feel for what they're doing,
Yes, I've been to a few meetings over the past few months.
and you're able to make that commitment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi there, thanks for coming this evening. I was just wondering, since you've attended some of the meetings, do you have any ideas what you would like to bring to the commission and what you would like to do for the city?
Well, recently I've been elected to become the secretary for Youth Commission, so I feel like that is one thing I feel like is important to the Youth Commission, and what I might bring is helpfulness to being secretary. Yeah.
Thank you.
Meredith?
So it's so good to see you, and I am glad you're going to be secretary. I just wanted to speak to the fact that he has been already very committed and following through, I think, is what I've been most impressed with, because it is a big deal, and when you take on a commitment, you follow through. If you say you're going to bring research materials the next meeting, you show up with more than we asked for, so he's off to a great start.
That's great. Any other questions? No? So Ben, can you tell us just maybe a few of your outside interests?
I like playing guitar, reading books, and cooking.
Cooking, wow. Well, good. I'm so glad that you're applying for the Youth Commission, and love the same thing like Antonio said, that you're 7th grader and on the young side. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a couple of proclamations. I will come down. You don't think I'm loud enough, do you? Because I think I am. Okay, the first proclamation is for the National Day of Prayer. Whereas a National Day of Prayer was first observed by members of the Continental Congress in 1775, and President Truman signed a joint resolution declaring an annual National Day of Prayer in 1952. And whereas the 67th observance of the National Day of Prayer will be held on Thursday, May 3rd of 2018, with the theme, Pray for America, Unity, to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. And whereas prayer plays a powerful role in the lives of all cultures, religions, and backgrounds, and serves as a source of moral and spiritual guidance for millions throughout Colorado and the nation. And whereas National Day of Prayer is recognized by Coloradans and Americans of all religious faiths, and those who participate will join in prayer to reaffirm our course as a democratic nation with the promise of liberty and justice for all. And whereas we unite with fellow citizens to exercise the freedom we have to gather in prayer to seek guidance, provision, protection, and purpose for the benefit of every individual and our community as a whole. Now, therefore, I, Carol Dodge, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 3rd, 2018, as a National Day of Prayer in the City of Northglenn, and encourage every citizen of this community to give thanks, each according to their own faith, for the freedoms and blessings we have received, and for continued guidance and protection. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 23rd day of April 2018. And I have Don Middlestat from Crossroads Church accepting the proclamation tonight. Hi, Don, how are you? Would you like to share a few words, please?
Yes, I would. You took my first 2 introductory paragraphs. Oh, man. Sorry, I didn't have that. That's okay.
You can repeat them if you like.
No, I won't. But Crossroads Church will have a prayer service, public prayer service, Thursday, May 3rd, 2018 at 6:30 at our Northglenn campus at 104th and Huron. Did I say 6:30? I think so. And we want to invite all people who would like to pray for our nation in corporate prayer. Further, we include prayers for the our national government, the state government, and local governments, Northglenn especially. We'll be praying for you guys. We have requested our members to provide names of family members that are currently on active duty in the military, and for active duty first responders at both police and fire department. And their names will be scrolling on a scroll above so that people can pray for the individuals, both corporately and individually. Since you took my first 2 paragraphs, I'm going to throw in a prayer works. There's been 147 and counting days of prayers, national days of prayer, that they've gone back and researched through the documents of the National Archives, state legislative archives, and the national registers. And this is for the original 13 states, etc. And a notable one, 1746, when French Admiral d'Anville sailed from New England, or for New England, commanding the most powerful fleet at the time, 70 ships with 13,000 troops. He was intended to recapture Louisville, Nova Scotia, and destroy from Boston to New York all the way to Georgia. Massachusetts Governor William Shirley declared a day of prayer, fasting, October 16, 1746, to pray for deliverance. In Boston's Old South Meeting House, Reverend Thomas Prince prayed, "Send the tempest, Lord, upon the water, scatter the ships of our tormentors." Historian Catherine Drinker Bowen related that as she finished praying, the sky darkened, the wind shrieked, church bells rang, and quote, a wild, uneven sound, though no man was in the steeple. A hurricane subsequently sank and scattered the entire French fleet. With 4,000 sick and 2,000 dead, the Admiral d'Anville French dead also, the French Vice Admiral, a name I cannot pronounce, threw himself on his sword. And Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote in his ballad of the French fleet, quote, "Admiral d'Anville was sworn by cross and crown to ravage with fire and steel our helpless Boston town. From mouth to mouth spread tidings of dismay. I stood in the Old South saying humbly, let us pray. Like a potter's vessel broke, the great ships of the line were carried away as smoke or sank in the brine." Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Now, as raids from France and Spain increased, Ben Franklin proposed a general fast, which was approved by the Pennsylvania President and Council and published in the Pennsylvania Gazette December 12th, 1747. We have, though fit, to appoint a day of fasting and prayer, exhorting all, both ministers and people, to join with one accord in the most humble and fervent supplications that Almighty God would, I didn't prepare well, mercifully interpose and still the ravage of war among the nations and put a stop to the infusion of Christian blood. So we will also pray again for our community churches, our families, and youth, and again extend an invitation to come and attend and pray for our nation, community, and for unity, and see what God can do for our great nation as He's done previously. We thank you for the proclamation, and it's an honor and a privilege to accept it. May God bless America.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Don, for coming tonight. Okay, our second proclamation is in honor of National Small Business Week. Whereas America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard. And whereas from the storefront shops that anchor Main Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstones of our nation's promise. And whereas small business owners have energy and a passion for what they do, and whereas when we support small businesses, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And whereas because this country's 30 million small businesses create nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs throughout the United States Small Business Administration and other governmental agencies. And whereas the City of Northglenn supports and joins in this national effort to help America's small businesses do what they do best: grow their businesses, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now therefore I, Carol Dodge, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, do hereby proclaim April 29th through May 5th, 2018 as National Small Business Week in the City of Northglenn, and urge all citizens to acknowledge and celebrate the achievements made by small businesses both locally and nationally. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 23rd day of April 2018. And I believe we have Jill Mendoza, our Economic Development Specialist, to accept this proclamation and say a few words also, if you would.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council members, for your support of Small Business Week, which highlights the economic impact of entrepreneurs and small business owners. The vast majority of our 1,000 plus businesses here in Northglenn are small businesses. Therefore, we are proud to celebrate Northglenn's entrepreneurial spirit and hope you'll join in the conversation next week at using the hashtag Small Business Week. You can share your thoughts and engage with others who love small businesses as much as we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill.
Thanks.
All right, our first presentation tonight will be the Youth Commission's quarterly report. And I'm not sure who's coming forward for that. Peyton and Allie. Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Good evening, girls.
I'm Allie Danici. And I'm Peyton Larson. And so this is like our conclusion of the quarter. So we come in to present once a quarter just to wrap up everything that we've done and like just discuss all of our accomplishments and maybe our like goals for the next quarter.
So one of the first things we did was the school supply drive. So over winter break, we collected school supplies from different places around the community. And we compiled them all into different backpacks and distributed them to schools throughout Northglenn. And the reason we did this is at the beginning of the school year, there's a lot of school supply drives that give supplies to students that are in need that may not otherwise have a way to afford them. But as students, we all know that at semester, sometimes we run out of things, we lose pencils, things happen where we have to go out and buy new school supplies around January. And so we recognized as a commission that a lot of youth in the city don't necessarily have the means to go out and buy those new supplies, and so there weren't really any school supply drives during the winter because that's usually a beginning of the year thing. So we decided to do that to help people at semester.
So another one we did was the Farmers Highland Canal cleanup. We helped clean up Fox Run and then part of Webster Lake. And every single year we find like the weirdest stuff. And this year we found a tire and a cell phone. It was like a really old cell phone too. It's crazy.
All right. We also worked on the Read Across America Day. So we worked with City Council and with the Northglenn police officers, and we went to Stookie and the Studio School, and we got the opportunity to read to elementary school children. It was Dr. Seuss's birthday, kind of in celebration of that. It's a nationwide event, and so we did that, and we were able to donate books to the kids as well to encourage literacy throughout the community.
We also have a couple new members joining us, which is Lily, Isabel, Jacob, Jarrett, Everett, and Ben. And so I think we actually accomplished our goal for the year for recruitment, but we are still trying to replace all 8 of the seniors that are leaving, so we still have a little ways to go. Yeah. And then next quarter, we're also planning on doing the Little Libraries, which is a place, we haven't decided if it's going to be public or more of like a private. We're thinking on like school property, but we're trying to like create a place where children can come in order to read a book, even if it's on the weekend and they don't have access to libraries. We're hoping that it'll boost the literacy scores around Northglenn and stuff like that, and we feel like it'd be a pretty cool way to get kids more involved with reading.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for you, commissioners? Jordan?
I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you do and this leadership role that will carry you long through life. So we appreciate your service to the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have you guys thought about doing story time at the rec center?
We kind of discussed that when we were talking about the Read Across America Day, because our end goal for that was getting kids more exposed to reading and things like that, and also community members. And so we had discussed different ways to do that. And as for our goals at the time and the timeline we had, we figured that Read Across America Day was the best way to do that. Once we're finishing up the Little Libraries project, we're certainly going to still explore different ways that we can continue improving literacy throughout the community. And that is one of the things that we'll put into consideration when figuring out how to do that.
Perfect. My grandson.
And you guys have done an amazing job with recruitment. I know you already said that, but honestly, there were times when over the years it was touch and go as to whether there would be anybody replacing the graduating seniors. So you have gotten so many new members. It's really great. You guys did a great job at that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is actually a presentation of dedicated service awards to our youth commissioners who will be leaving, and I would like to invite the council down so they can also congratulate our youth commissioner. And youth commissioners, I'm going to invite you up one by one, read a little bit about you. Maybe you guys will share a few words, give you your award, and then you may go through the line of council members. So we're going to start with Isabel Cunis. Hi, Isabel. How are you? I'll give you this first because you can hold it the whole time. How would that be? Beautiful. Thank you. All right, this is just a little bit about your after high school plans, right? You will be attending Tulane University, majoring in international relations and legal studies in business and studying German. $49,000 annually renewable scholarship you've received. That is amazing. Congratulations. North Suburban Medical Center Volunteer of the Month with over 500 hours of volunteer service. Congress, I'm not going to say that right, Bundestag? Yep, right. Bundestag, how about that? Youth Exchange Ambassador, scholarship recipient to study abroad for 11 months in Germany as a high school junior, and Future Business Leaders of America State Qualifier. That is an amazing resume already. So we expect great things. Thank you so much, and you can go up and stay. Isabel, did you want to say a few words? I should have said that first, but I didn't.
Well, I just want to say thank you to you all for all of your support with the Northglenn Youth Commission. It's really been a great thing to do throughout high school. And I also want to thank Amanda and Carol and Meredith for all of their help individually with the Northglenn Youth Commission, and it's been great. I'll miss it.
Thank you so much. Next, can we have Ali Danichi? Hello. Did you want to take your picture with each one or all of them? That would be great if we could get one with each. Okay, we'll have Isabel come back up. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's see your resume. You're attending CU Boulder. You received scholarships from CU Boulder and Councilmember Escabel, majoring in psychology with a specialization in criminal behavior, Youth Commission Vice President, President of HOSA. So what's the acronym stand for? Thank you. You are an Honor Society member, another acronym, CHSSA, Academic All-State. Very good. Consultant for Mortgage Family Foundation. I don't know what that is either. Okay. Northglenn High School STEM Ambassador, captain of the swim team and cross-country team, and manager for the boys swim team.
Well, congratulations. You are awesome. And because you're so awesome, you get this great award. Look how beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, first of all, thank you to the City Council. You, like Isabel said, you've not only supported the Northglenn Youth Commission, but you've also supported each of us individually in helping us do what we wanted to do and what we saw for the youth in the community. And I also want to thank you for the opportunity to be here, because I've been here since 2013, and so I've grown a lot through this time period, and I've been able to grow with my community and be able to do things with my community in that time, and that's something that I value a lot, and I hope to one day be able to come back and continue helping my community. And so having this as a foundation and a starting point for that is something I really appreciate. So thank you to the City Council and to the citizens of Northglenn.
Sure. Picture you. Are we supposed? Thank you. You've done a great job. It's just so great to meet you.
Okay, next we have Natalie Grambart. Hi, Natalie. All right. You will be attending Rensselaer Polytech Institute. That is very cool. I even know where that is, so how's that? You have received the Rensselaer Medal for Science and Math Scholarships of $58,000 annually. Amazing. You should be proud. Majoring in aeronautical engineering and considering a second major in mechanical engineering. Northglenn High School class of 2018 valedictorian. Founding member of Girls Only STEM. Executive officer for Honor Society. Top 20 senior. Obviously, if you're the valedictorian, correct? Varsity letters in swimming and cross country. Amazing.
I'd just like to say thanks for council for having the youth commission and allowing us to do it. I've only been out for 2 years, but it's been an amazing opportunity. Thank you guys for always supporting us, and even for some of our goals sound a little weird or out for far-fetched. And I'd just like to say thanks to my fellow youth commissioners for being super fun and super dedicated to everything we do. I'm excited for the future of the youth commission and for new members.
Next we have Peyton Larson. All right, you will be attending CU Denver, majoring in early childhood education. You have been the Youth Commission Vice Secretary, Youth Commissioner for 5 years, member of the National Honor Society, National Junior Honor Society, and you lettered in academics.
So I just want to thank you guys, everybody on council and youth commission, for being there for me for the past 5 years. I definitely have grown a lot, and I definitely really want to be continue being really involved in my community, and I just want to thank you guys for that.
So Peyton lives in Thornton, and she's on the Northglenn Youth Commission. That's awesome. I think that's awesome. She's a great member. Okay, next we have Cindy Rodriguez. You will be attending, I feel like Vanna White or something. You, Oprah, you get a car. You will be attending the Colorado School of Mines with a full scholarship from Michelle's Foundation and Path Scholarship. Can you tell us what Michelle's Foundation is?
I believe his wife passed away, and he wanted to pass it on because she really believed in passing, like giving it forward. And because of that, I was able to meet him at a dinner, and he just told me that he would be paying for all of my school, and I cried, and it was very emotional. But I'm very thankful for that.
And what is the Path Scholarship?
That is a scholarship as apart from the school where you go in, it's kind of like a leadership role, and we go in, and I believe we're having a meeting tomorrow, and that scholarship would help with room and board as well.
I'm sure your families are bursting, right? Over 250 hours of community service. I'm sorry, I forgot to say she will be majoring in computer science. A Roots and Shoots member. What's Roots and Shoots? You just plant some plants randomly? Okay. It's a good thing. We need plants. And you're an Honor Society member. So, Natalie, congratulate Natalie. Oh my God, Cynthia. Cindy, congratulations. I'm sorry.
I just want to say thank you to the council and to the youth commission members. You guys have helped me grow and give back to my community, and I couldn't ask for anything more.
And our last recipient tonight will be Mariah Witkowski. Come on forward. All right, Mariah will be attending CU Denver. You received a CU Denver Provost Scholarship. Would you explain that one? Can you explain that one a little bit?
It was just something that was based on success.
And you're majoring in bioengineering. You were the Youth Commission Secretary, and you lettered in academics and STEM. Very good resume. Thank you so much. Let's pose for a picture.
I would just like to say thank you to you guys, the City Council, and to all of my fellow youth commissioners, as well as specifically Carol and Meredith and Amanda. It's been really an amazing experience, and I wouldn't have traded it for anything, so thank you.
That's it for tonight, but as you can see, our youth commissioners are amazing. So I expect great things out of all of them, and I hope they all keep in touch with us too. So thank you all.
Can I ask for a group photo as well?
Photo shoot.
Okay, everybody want to
Group pictures. I guess my group photo, I missed that the first time around.
Thank you. Okay. Everybody else come up.
Now you can all come up and just take a group
All right. I've been having that baby a lot lately. I can see George.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
One, two, three. One more for good measure. Thank you. Thank you.
Felt nice. So warm. I know.
Okay, that's a warm face. We'll just do the whole meeting now.
I know.
All right, we will move to public invited to be heard. 5 minutes per speaker. Statements shall be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. Goodbye, Larson family. Love you guys. Okay, oh, my agenda went away. All right, seeing no one come forward, we will move on to the Legislative Policy Committee update. Jim?
We just had a committee meeting tonight. We did not have any bills to discuss, and we did schedule a special meeting in the committee on May 7th because the session ends May 9th. So I'll defer to the committee members to have anything to add.
Members?
Nothing to
add. No? Okay. Yeah. All right, we will move to the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please open the vote, Joanna.
The vote is open.
Vote, please.
I'll close that vote, and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Thank you. And then we had an item removed from consent agenda, which is item D, CR 62. Joanna, would you read that title, please?
A resolution appointing members of the Northglenn City Council to the City of Northglenn Performance Appraisal Committee.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion?
I asked that this get pulled out of the consent agenda tonight, just because I guess I just wanted to have a little bit more of an understanding of why these members were chosen for the committee. I felt like in the past we've talked about committee appointments, and I was just curious why these particular individuals were chosen and then not others were asked specifically.
Okay. So at the organizational meeting, we had all talked about all of the appointments. The only difference about why this was being added to the consent agenda tonight is my bad, in that Becky had asked that night at the organizational meeting to be on the committee. And I said yes, and we could discuss it later because the Ward 2 person had not been seated yet. So I said, let's discuss it later when we have the Ward 2 people assigned to their committees. And I just never followed up with Joanna to make her an actual member of the evaluation committee. So we, of course, discovered that, and this is just kind of a housekeeping issue because she did want to be on it, and we didn't address it, and I never followed through to have her name put on, so it just fell through the cracks. Yes.
And forgive me if I'm forgetting this discussion, but I feel like this is the third time since the election that this type of thing has come up. And the last time it came up, we talked about process, and I don't know when we were going to ever discuss it. So the first time we talked a little bit about how it felt, and could we have more open discussion about it. And then it came up again. I don't remember what the issue was specifically. It was the, what was it? Oh goodness. Like January. It was the Dr. Cog. Thank you. It was whatever. So that, it came up again. And at that time, I thought we talked about having more of a process discussion. Did we ever put that on an agenda?
We have not put it on an agenda, no.
Okay. Am I remembering this incorrectly, I guess?
Well, I don't believe that it's come up 3 times. I mean, I think at the organizational meeting, I definitely went through all of the committee members and who wanted what, and we discussed all that. Mm-hmm. Definitely the process has come up. It was a question of how we move forward, and I think it's just an item that we haven't specifically asked Jim to put on study session, how we move forward with putting committee members on.
I thought we had put it on a study session. No?
No, we have not.
I think so.
Okay.
I think we talked about
Meredith.
Do you, if you remember back to the organizational, when we were talking about that, nobody else volunteered to sit with my husband last year while he went over it because he was the chair of the evaluation committee. So I did that with him last time. And so I offered to be on it so that since I was already familiar with the process, we would at least have somebody from the last group, who knew what to do. But I wasn't involved in the evaluations.
So, and I'm back to have a preference as far as who sits on it. I think I'm still stuck on the process.
Oh, yeah.
Just because we talked about it the first night, we talked about it again, and then I just was like, oh, this is coming up again, and it just sparked my memory of, I thought we were going to talk about process.
So the next time that it'll actually be an issue of when people get appointed to the boards and commissions will be on the next election, and that's 2019. So we have time. So I don't think it's a rush, but it's definitely an item. I mean, it's up to council's pleasure as to when you want to discuss it at a study session.
So tell me again. I think you said it a second ago. This is just a housekeeping item from the very first time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a reason everyone is not on that particular committee?
Everybody does the evaluations. The evaluation committee just takes the evaluations all, that everybody puts in, and then you will score it when you do your evaluation. You'll see how you score, right? My portion of the evaluation committee will be to create the spreadsheet that's used for weighting.
Got it. That makes sense, because when I read it at first, I thought that it put the evaluation in the hands of a few.
No.
Instead of having, and thank you.
You're welcome.
It just develops the spreadsheet and then
We go from there, but we rate our employees. We have 4. You're right, 4. I always forget about Corey, but there's a reason behind that. Corey and the judge and Jim and Joanna are the 4 that we do, and then we have all the other ones too, but we don't do them.
I just, as long as we all get an equal
Oh, yeah.
voice, I
Definitely.
think that's it.
You get all your
What
time.
happens is, after you evaluate, then we meet in an executive session and discuss all the evaluations and how we feel.
Appreciate that.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just first want to echo what Councilmember Leidy said around, this was a big discussion that we had when many of us were sworn on around what is the process and how do we appoint folks, and should it be a larger conversation, and does it have to be done at the first meeting? And I think that that's something I really want to uplift, that we really should be talking about how we can be intentional and how we can set everybody up for success and have everybody understand what each committee is doing, and then make sure that we have the right folks on that committee. So whether we're doing a study session this year or whether we're doing a study session at the beginning of next year, I think it's something that we've talked about enough as a council that we should put as a dedicated study session item. The other thing that I noticed as I was looking through the folks who were appointed or proposed to be appointed is that there's a wealth of knowledge on that committee, and I appreciate that, and I understand that Councilmember Brown, yes, thank you, has done the process, and I appreciate that. But what I notice is that there's nobody new on the committee, and so I wonder, is this, are we missing an opportunity to have a new set of eyes on the way that the process is being handled and carried out? And so I wanted to know if there were other folks on council who had any interest in serving on that commission, or I'm sorry, on that committee, because I would think that this would be the time in which we would appoint them in addition to Councilmember Brown. So I would love to lodge that I am personally interested, but I would love to hear if there are other folks interested in the job as well.
Mayor, I just had a quick question. So last year, before we did this committee, how many was on it? It was Councilmember Brown, Joe.
Yeah, it was 3.
And then you were the 3rd.
No, I wasn't on it last year. I just wanted to know how we did it, because I felt like we were going to have a lot of new people and not knowing, who's going to win Ward 2.
Yeah.
So I just literally.
So we can have as many as we want, or is there a cap at 4?
Literally, the job part of the committee is.
No cap.
No, I don't think so, but I don't know, Joanna, do you?
Time consuming, but not. I don't want to say it. How do I say it? It's very, a lot of data entry, a lot of this, a lot of that. When you look at our evaluations, we don't use our words, we use numbers. There are comment sections that are also added to the spreadsheet, but we use a number rating system. So there's not a lot of interpreting, You know what I mean? If you got a 5 here, a 4 here, a 3 here, you know, or whatever, that's all that's gonna go into the big spreadsheet. The hardest part of it last year for me watching the ex-Councilmember Brown was people not turning their evaluations in and having to be asked several times to get them in by the deadline. That was a little rough.
To go off that, I mean, if there's no cap or there's a new council member willing to serve, I don't mind having that be extended or someone stepping down or however that works. I just thought there might be a cap, but it's good to know there's not.
There's not.
There's a party.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a limit in how many people can serve on
There's
this?
no limit on that. No.
Okay. Well, I would like to see some of the new folks, if they're interested, be on it, because what I've gathered the last few years is kind of a cookie cutter sheet. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not much
That's
of an
true.
evaluation. It's a very poor process for evaluation. Should be a little bit more
We had talked about that though, I thought.
specific, I guess, other than just numbers.
I think that'd be a Paula thing because it's the same evaluation that's used for all of our employees within the city of Northglenn.
It's not.
I don't.
No,
I don't
isn't
think
it?
it is.
No? I thought it
No.
was.
No.
We talked about possibly changing it up last year, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. So.
There are spots for comments, but, you know, each section, when you do your evaluation part, you can list your comments on there. So, for instance, if you felt that there was an area of improvement or you wanted to recognize somebody, you could put it on the comments. But I think it would be great.
I'm going to give you one example, and
No names.
the interaction that we have with the judge. What do we really know about the judge and what work she's doing? You know,
Well,
she puts
she-
in
and
a lot of
when you-
hours, but we don't know anything about that process.
Right, and when you evaluate her, you're given the choice of
Right.
saying NA if you don't know. So it's not that you're grading her unfairly, it's that you
No, but
actually
if
can
you-
say you
if
haven't
you're-
seen her in.
If you're going to pick a 1, or you're going to pick a 5, I mean, how do you decide which one, or how do you decide if you're an NA? I mean, why are we evaluating her then?
Well, she comes
That's
in and
just one example.
she gives her presentations, she gives her reports, she has helped us immensely in the Justice Center, so using some of that Justice Center information is gonna help you with the evaluation. The judge really stepped out of her box in order to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't.
Again, I don't have any knowledge of that, but I found it very hard to evaluate the last few years.
You know, and I agree with you. I agree with you, but I think the judge and that was my hardest one.
I mean, Corey, we have interaction with him.
Okay.
You know, we can pretty much know whether we like him or we don't, or want to keep him or we don't. We had Jim, we had Joanna, we interact with these people. The judge, we don't interact with.
So, I go down to the courts and I sit in the court.
Mhm.
And I listen, and I do talk to the employees in the court, and I talk to the judge. So, I think it behooves you, if you want to know more about what is going on in the court, to do something like that. And then you would have a better way to evaluate her, or him.
Just a quick question. I think I'm confused whether we're discussing the appointed members or if we're discussing the process right now. So if we're just gonna do the appointed members, then we should add a new member or have that discussion of adding a new or however that works as opposed to the process, because I think the committee would then do the process, because I don't think right now is the time to discuss the process, just so we can continue moving.
I feel like we'll be talking about the process at a later date.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mia. I'll volunteer to be on the committee. I think it sounds like a very interesting process.
You will like
need
it.
to learn about. So.
Okay, so right now on the floor, we have the Performance Appraisal Committee appointment. So what we were doing was adding Becky just because she had volunteered and she was not put on. Like I said, my bad because I didn't follow up with Joanna to actually put her on the resolution. So I personally would like to just leave the membership as it is right now. There are a lot of issues that I think not issues, but I think every time it's brought up about being transparent about the committees, it makes me crazy because we've done this for years on this council. And I don't like the tone that this takes where it's always the way the old council did something and the new members. It's not old versus new. Nobody's causing that separation except when you bring it up. So it's disturbing to me that the process is always questioned and always questioned. And it just makes us feel like as a council, and I'm saying this as a mayor and as a former council person for 8 years, the process has worked really well so far. So I take offense to some of these comments. So I am okay with if people want to be on it because we don't have a limit, so whoever wants to be on it can be on the committee. I just think that the people that are on it have been doing a good job. The people in the past have done a good job, and I don't like the tone of some of the comments tonight.
Re-elected folks. Okay.
Certainly.
I feel like, I mean, honestly, I just feel like, especially with this committee and the way that this discussion has, I wasn't really intending on joining the committee, but I feel like, you know, I feel like I should, just because there is a lot of, you know, people with more experience than me. It feels like something I need to learn. I'm not trying to step on any toes, but as somebody new, I'm allowed to ask questions, and I don't think that that's anything wrong.
I wasn't pointing out a comment that you made, so.
So do we need to do a motion to add these folks, add the additional folks?
You can do a friendly, can't they, Corey?
I don't think it's technically friendly since it changes.
You can do right now there's a main motion on the floor. You could certainly do a motion to amend, to add someone, and then vote on the amendment, and then if the amendment passes, the vote would be on the main motion as amended.
Great. Then I'd love to make a motion to add Councilmember Mullica and Councilmember Wilford.
Second.
Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Oh, Joanna, you're gonna have to wait. I don't know, it's stupid. Sorry, I didn't mean it.
We'll close that vote, and the motion to amend CR 62 to add council members Duran, Mullica, and Wilford passes with 1 no vote cast by Mayor Dodge.
Thank you. Okay, we will move to resolutions, CR 60.
Well, do we have to do another?
Yeah, now you have to do
I'm sorry, we have to vote on the first? Okay, I'm sorry. Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
See, that vote is open now.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR 62 as amended passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to CR 60 resolution. Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving an agreement between the City of Northglenn and Keene Concrete Incorporated for the 2018 CDBG concrete replacement project.
Move to approve. Second. Jim, would you give us an update, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is the Community Development Block Grant Program, which we receive funds through HUD and then through Adams County. In August of 2015, we entered into an intergovernmental agreement with the county, and the IGA allows us to administer the CDBG funds that they pass through. So we've been using this in recent years to complete infrastructure improvements that included sidewalk replacement and handicap ramp accessibility, and the amount of $205,019 was secured to continue the program in 2018. We did a IFB for the project this year. The winning bid was Keene Concrete in $194,750. So we'd be proposing that we use the balance of funds for contingency. And in years past, sometimes we're able to just get more extra work out of that same contract and build out more of the sidewalk program. It is very restrictive in terms of the census tracts that we have to follow. Excuse me, but we're pretty confident we can spend all of that money this coming year. So we do recommend approval of this resolution, which would authorize the mayor to execute the contract between Northglenn and Keene Concrete in the amount of $194,750, and then authorize me as the city manager to go up to the full amount of $205,019. And Mr. Weber's here to answer any additional questions you may have about the process.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? All right, Becky.
I'm just kind of curious, Mr. Weber, on how, where the work is going to be performed. How is that determined? I know Jim said there's a lot of census stuff that goes with it.
It has to do with at-risk population and socioeconomics in the area, so those grants can only be used in those areas that are defined. I believe they have a map of everything that we've done, but I don't know if it was on here or not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all these areas that are in the blue are recognized as potential CDBG, and we can actually use those grant funds in those areas.
Okay.
One other thing, just so you know, this will probably be the last year that we'll have to use it on the sidewalks. We believe that after this year, we'll have all these sidewalks in the CDBG area covered, and so we can start using those funds for other things going forward.
What kind of other things?
Just different projects that would be in those same areas. So like potentially working with the roads or transportation, those type of things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Are there any other questions? Thank you. Thank you. Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
We'll close that vote, and CR 60 passes unanimously.
Our next resolution is CR 61. Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving an agricultural lease agreement between the City of Northglenn and Matthew Holstrom for the use of approximately 210 acres of city-owned property located adjacent to the Northglenn wastewater treatment plant for agricultural purposes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Tim?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is a resolution to approve a contract for an agricultural lease on the land next to the wastewater treatment plant. This would be between the city and a farmer, Matthew Holstrom. He submitted an unsolicited proposal to farm the land at the plant. It includes an option for renewal up to 3 additional consecutive years. Because of the water constrictions we have right now, this would be dry land farming, so there are some crops listed there that he's able to grow successfully without needing to irrigate the property. So the benefit to us is that we do not have to maintain that property and use a lot of staff time to do so. In the event that there is any revenue from there, it would be shared. The fact that it's going to be non-irrigated, the possibility of revenue is pretty low, but we do have it in the agreement that we would share in a small portion of the revenue. So we do recommend approval of this, and Mr. Weber's here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there questions, Marcy?
I know this might sound like a silly question, but what does the city have as far as liability if something were to happen while he's on the property and gets injured?
So we have the last section of the lease talks about the governmental immunity. We are immune in this context. It is not the type of, there's no exception for this type of conduct, so therefore we have immunity.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, Rob. Okay, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
We'll close that vote, and CR 61 passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, we will move to discussion items, the first being Ralston House update. Rob, you might as well just stay front and center, right?
Actually, Nate is going to do that.
Oh, okay. All right, come on up, Nate.
Did you tell him how mean we were? Okay. As long as you warned him, we eat him alive.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Nate Hazes. I'm the interim operations manager for the city of Northglenn, as well as sitting as the project manager on the Ralston House and the Justice Center project. For the Ralston House, the contractors mobilized onto the site. They brought the trailer. They began excavating. They poured the foundation last Friday. They're continuing to work utility work, and that will be the majority of their work for the rest of the month. Again, the goal is to get out of the ground and avoid any potential weather hazards that could come up during the wet season in Colorado.
Does anyone have any questions for Nate?
He's still on schedule.
Yeah, well, we just started, and the completion date is the end of December of this year. So,
Yeah.
yes.
For this first week, we are on schedule. Thank you.
So good. Thank you, Nate. Are you also doing our Justice Center update?
I will also do the Justice Center as well.
All right, we'll go right ahead.
The Justice Center, I'm sure as you guys have driven by it, the contractor is completing the exterior shell of the building and also completed the majority of the interior partitions. The traffic signals have gone up over the last week, and they're just doing some fine tuning on that to make sure everything's ready to go when the building opens in September. So.
Questions? Justice Center, Becky?
I don't really have a question. I just want to comment that I love it. You know, I love driving by that area so I can see how it's changed in a week or however long it's been. That is a beautiful building. I absolutely love that.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
Other questions? None? Nate, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And then we have the added item C, the Huron Street fencing. I think you're on, Antonio.
Thank you, Mayor. Jenny and I spent the morning making pictures of Northglenn. I call it the ghetto.
There's one here for you as
Section of
well,
the ghetto.
Jim.
There'll be one for you, Jim. And while we were there, we looked over at the Huron Center and the storm drain, beautiful trees, and AutoZone sign up already, and looking really great. And then we look across the street and we see a neighborhood that doesn't represent Northglenn at all. Thank you. We have invested a lot of money, millions of dollars, into that Huron Center, getting it to where it's at. When I say we, I'm speaking of NURA, but NURA money is our money, basically. And I would like to get a consensus that we either have a study session, or if there's a consensus tonight, that we move on and get that fixed. I asked Jim to get some numbers together for me for tonight, and if you're willing to present those, Jim, we can be out of here early.
I think it has to go to a study session. I mean, you know.
Well.
Is that, okay.
Jim, you want to give an update real quick?
I got confused.
Please.
Sure, this is very brief. So we sought out some preliminary estimates last year when this issue came up. We received 2 actual quotes, so we did not bid the project, but we got quotes. One was for $161,000, and one was for $120,000. And what this would do is for 700 linear feet of double-sided 8-foot cedar fence with a top rail. So it'd be stained and sealed to match the fence you see on 104th. Be installed from 104th south to the last residential property before the high school. This would also include 4 brick pilasters, again spec to match the existing. And then the quotes also include the removal of existing fences, removal of any vegetation that was on the fence line. And so we would clearly need to formally bid the project. And if we did that, we'd probably want to identify a budget around $175,000, probably $25,000 for contingency, just a nice round $200 just to be safe. It would probably come from CIP fund balance would probably be the likely source of those funds, but I've not coordinated with Mr. Loveland yet.
What was the length of fencing again?
750 feet.
Thank you. And are there any questions?
Yeah, additional question, thank you. When I brought this up at the study session when we were reviewing the city council retreat, you had mentioned that you were going to have staff go and speak to some of the residents and ask if they would be open to us building a fence to replace what's currently there. Has staff already done that, and what has the response been?
We have not done that. We were waiting further direction to see if we wanted to proceed with the project. Our recommendation at that point was to come up with a corridor plan and fence policy that would be included there so that we would know exactly what your policy direction wanted to be on all fencing. But if we get some direction tonight, we can do more investigation in advance of a study session for sure.
Great, thank you.
Meredith?
So the recent windstorm knocked my fence down. I've been obsessed with fencing between the last study session and my own personal fence, and all the fence that knocked down in the city. Like as I drive around, I'm like, oh, another one, another one, another one, and I just dollar signs going crazy. But literally, I took probably 5 trips to Home Depot this weekend, and each trip, I kept noticing the difference in certain areas of our city that have really nice, like, main artery fencing. And then based on our last discussion, I drove over here because I wanted to know what Antonio was squawking about. And I completely agree. And I support that this needs to move forward because it really does look so different compared to that new development on the other side of the street. And it doesn't match the rest of our city. We have long areas where we have really nicely maintained fencing. And so I believe that the neighborhoods that live over here deserve the same. So I fully support it. If we could find a way to push it forward, I think we should do it sooner than later.
My only comment on this subject, I agree that needs to be done. We have focused a lot of money over on Huron between the rocks and all of this last year and the fence. You know, if we start talking about this fencing, there are other areas that need the fencing too. Quite frankly, 112, we're going to have to do something with that at some point. So, you know, I have voted yes for everything on Huron, but I would really have to think about this particular part of it because there are other areas, and it just seems like we have focused on Huron for the last 2 years between the maintenance and cleaning up some of the other things. I feel that another part of the city could also use by this. But, so just so you know, Antonio.
Oh,
I think we all need it, and if we had enough money in our banks to just get everything and make it pretty, that would be awesome. But we can't just focus on one area of the city and not on the other 3 areas of the city. Otherwise, we're going to have this one really nice area, which is looking really nice with the Huron Center and everything. But the rest of the city, where there are other residents, are upset because their needs aren't being met. We've talked many times about the fencing along 112th, and I've heard every reason why we can't do anything for that. But that's just my comment on it. I'm not saying that I would vote it down. I would just like to see us start looking at some other areas besides Huron Street for these kind of projects.
My comment there would be bring it forward.
I have, many times.
What project?
112th.
Where 112th?
It's 112th on the way to the end line. It's the whole street right there when you're going down 112th where we have 2 lanes and we go into one.
Mm-hmm.
We have no fencing down that section. We have no fencing down this section.
But all of the fencing to the north is private fencing.
All the fencing all the way down 112th is private fencing.
Right.
So as we're talking about bringing the end line in, which will happen eventually sometime in our lives, that's going to be a major thoroughfare. And I can't see that being treated any differently than Huron, although Huron is a larger, bigger street. That one is going to have more traffic and, well, not more. I'm going to take that back right away. That's one's going to have comparable traffic as the street lanes will allow. So that's going to have some problems with those residents over there, you know?
When they did that project on 112th in the last 3 and 4 years, how many millions of dollars did they spend doing that?
I don't know what do you know, Joyce?
I do know. You know what, I would just like to add a little bit of a comment, just an overall about fencing in the city. So we don't have a fence policy. It's very expensive to do fences in the entire city. I cannot even imagine. So in my HOA, one of the huge things is that we've saved for the fencing going down. Like the big hurricane, the big whatever that comes through, if all the fencing goes down, which the HOA maintains, we've had bids on it and it's over $1 million. So it's very expensive. And that's just for the HOA. So I can't even imagine what the city would be. But I think the further conversation that the council really has to have is how do you move forward with the fencing policy? And Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but is staff already working on a fencing policy?
Yes, it's included in the corridor plan. We have public realm, private realm fencing included there. And I don't have the exact date, but it's either May or June where we're going to be bringing that, probably June, we're going to be bringing that back in front of you for consideration.
And when you bring it back to us, what is kind of the context of bringing it back?
Well, it'd be a study session first, and then after we receive input and further direction on the plan and that policy, we would revise it and then bring it back to you for formal adoption. And then the second part of that is the complete streets ordinance, which I think fencing could proceed without that. But, you know, then there would be ordinances that would regulate private fencing adjacent to arterial streets. And so we would determine who's responsible, if you will, and what standards people would have to meet. And then, of course, we would want to budget in the CIP for a multi-year fencing implementation. So this would be the first part of that, and then there would be many years of fencing that we would have to budget for.
Okay. So I just wanted Jim to kind of give us that update. Anybody else have something? Go ahead, Anthony.
I did want to draw, I don't know what picture it is because I didn't assemble it. But where the orphan pillar is, anybody see the orphan pillar?
Right.
Oh, that's amazing. I paid homage. I did. I went to the orphan village. I went there. I wanted to see what it was.
Yes,
Yes, it is. It's in there.
Oh, was that the orphan pillar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 2.
Yeah.
So that was a project that was started and never completed. We have a space, then we have a pillar. We never put any fence between the two pillars. So we call it the orphan pillar because it's there, but there's no fence. So obviously the intent at one time was to put a fence there. And, you know, I'm fine with the study session. I want to bring this forward and, but I don't think it should be included as part of the whole corridor plan. This is something separate.
Jenny?
No, Councilmember.
Can I just get clarification? Because part of, I think, the frustration I have on this is just that we continuously have talked about this street, or this fencing plan. Susan Klein, who was previously on council, stressed the importance of it, and we never seem to get it going, and we always push it at this corridor plan. And my issue that I have is that this came up for us too in Ward 3 with Village of Greens, and who's responsible for those fences and the maintenance. And, you know, just want to say it was quite a process and an ordeal for us to go through in determining the maintenance and gates. And I think we figured out a plan and a solution for that, but I don't think there's anything that's formalized on that ownership even still. And so, you know, when I think about the fact that Klein's been gone for 4 years, so it's real frustrating that we still don't have it. And we talk about it all the time, and we talk about the corridor plan. Is the corridor plan, does staff see that there's the potential that the fencing style would change, or the pillars in the corridor plan, to the point that if we move forward in just doing the fence as we've been doing them, do we anticipate that that style is going to change? And so is there a purpose to hold it? I'm just asking.
So, great question. We'd always plan on doing the corridor plan and fencing in 2018, so that's why it's on the work plan for this year.
Hang on, I
Yeah.
have to clarify. We have, because you've been here and we've been talking about it, but council has had this conversation a lot. So it got on the work plan when you got here, and I respect that, but I just want to say, like, it hasn't been dark, so.
Okay. Given the investment that we already have in our existing style and the brick pillars, I think it's very unlikely we would change the style. In fact, I know when we were talking about the logo and rebranding efforts, a lot of the pillars have the old script N in there, and so we were not going to rebuild pillars. The idea was maybe pop out the tile and put the new logo on those. So I can't imagine we would be changing style of fencing.
I think that's an important one for me. And then I guess to the point of whose fence is it afterwards, and who's responsible for the maintenance of it and being all fair. I mean, then I'd say like the next strip down here on heading north is just as bad. And half of those fences fell down and 2 of them have orange. So guess what's the response when those residents come and say, you just put in fencing down the road, where am I? And I just want to have an answer, because that falls in some of our ward too.
It's a great question. I was here when we did the ERA project there, which was to rebuild Huron Street for into concrete. And conscious decision was made by city council at that point to not touch any of the fencing and just focus on the road and the sidewalk. So those are entirely privately owned north of 104th at this point.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as Councilmember Escabel pointed out, he and I went for a walk this morning, and we tried to take photos of everything that we saw along the way. The multiple different types of fence, lots of trash, and then looking across the street and seeing a really incredible forward movement on behalf of our city, and that's the Huron Center. And as we were walking down Huron Street, there were some kids that passed, and when we got to the end of the block where the fencing is, we saw the high school. So this is a school route that we're sending kids up and down every day that looks like this, right? Yes, we have spent a lot of money on Huron Street, Councilmember Brown, but there's also been a lot of money that hasn't been spent in Ward 4 for quite some time. I think that if you ask any resident that lives south of 104th, they're going to tell you that they feel like the city doesn't care about them. There are no sculptures in that part of the ward. There are no parks in that part of the ward. And so I think asking for streetscaping and asking for fences so that as people are driving into our community up Huron Drive, and it looks clean and presentable, I don't think that that's too much to ask. I think that part of the reason that Councilmember Escabel and I decided to bring this forward at this particular time is because there was such an incredible windstorm. And it was a reminder that we just can't wait on another streetscaping plan. We just can't wait 5 more months, 6 more months, 1 more year to actually start taking measurable steps on some of these things that should have been addressed 5 or 10 years ago. And so what we're asking is for you to step forward with us and help us start fixing some of these things. We're not going to be able to fix every fence this year, and we get that, but we should start figuring out how do we start marking things off the list so that we have a more beautiful, more safe, more presentable, more fun.
I agree with you, but you realize that everything that you just said is what comes out of what every resident in our city. I mean, it's the same thing whether you walk into Ward 2 or Ward 1 or Ward 3. It's the same way. We're a small city where our funds are very strapped. I mean, we all admit that. I'm all for moving forward. I would love to know how we're going to do it, which is my next question for Jim. But I just think that we have to start focusing. I agree that Huron needs a fence, but there are other areas that also need work. And when we start talking about that money, that's where my constituents get concerned, because all this is going over there and look at that awesome shopping center, and then I do the whole Nura thing on that, It's the same thing that's said. Our whole city needs a lot of infrastructure work. Jim, this is my question to you. When the fences were done down Washington and on 104th, those were grants, weren't they? Wasn't that a grant that was done?
That's a very good memory. Washington Street, I know part of that I think was done with CDBG funds, and it's probably inappropriate use of those funds. But yes, I believe Washington Street was done with CDBG funds.
Is there any way that we can pursue some kind of a grant? I'm not familiar with every kind that we have in the world, but is there some way we can pursue a grant for Huron Street? Or I don't have to put you on the spot, just give it some thought, because if we can get some grants or some additional funding outside the city, I don't,
I think that's highly unlikely.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll look into it all the same.
Thank you very much.
And I appreciate everybody being conservative with their money. I'm very conservative with mine. However, we just voted $53 million last meeting for a rec center. That's not going to be completed in my term or some of these other folks' terms. I mean, we're talking about maybe $200,000. Even if it was $225,000, a drop in the bucket compared to what we just spent. When we want money, we seem to be able to go out and get money. When we wanted one more dollar for the arts and humanities thing, we gave them one more dollar. It was another 38,000 that we didn't have, but we found it. So obviously, we can find money. Obviously, there is money because we seem to find it. My wife goes in my billfold and finds money. So I'm sure the city has funds that we can expend and get this thing done. Not wait 1 year, 6 months. You know, if there's a consensus tonight, we can have a consensus tonight. If there's not, we can have a study session and get a consensus.
Consensus?
Move forward.
Well, we don't have an action.
We don't have an action
We don't
plan.
have an action item on the
We have
discussion.
to go to a study session first, I would think?
No.
No?
No,
No, but anyway, but we are gonna have a study session on the comprehensive plan, right?
That's fine.
And when is that gonna happen again? You say June? Can it be moved forward so we can start having this discussion?
Probably not, but we could have a discussion on the Huron Street fence. I mean,
Okay.
I know staff is really focused on the May 21st meeting to discuss the final traffic calming and the transportation improvements. I think we're targeting June 4th, if I'm remembering correctly, so we could probably move it up a couple weeks from there to June 4th.
The sooner the better, you know, and in the meantime, too, I'm thinking to have staff look at maintenance to make sure that it's cleaned up while we're looking at the process of what we want to do. I mean, because it is. I mean, I agree with Antonio. It's an eyesore.
It's going to be difficult to clean up other people's property.
Yeah.
But maybe if we talk to them, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, I think maybe that staff has to
We have a city
figure
right
out
away.
the process.
And we can do what we need to do within the city right away.
Right.
Jim, can you explain the process? Because tonight you are asking us to either come to a consensus that we direct you to move forward with the repairs of that intersection, of that corner and fencing, or we bring it to a study session. Is that correct? That's what you're asking?
Well, I will defer to Mr. Hoffman maybe on the process, because I just heard an interesting point. You know, it's a discussion item that was added, but we did not add possible action. So we could do that in 2 weeks. We have a special meeting because we have to squeeze one in to make it for Memorial Day. So that's May 7th. But
It seems to me there's two potential directions. The first is direction to bring it to a study session. The second is to give direction to proceed on whatever budget amendment is and putting it out to bid and going forward with a contract. You wouldn't have something to approve anyway in terms of money because you have a whole process to go through. So the question is whether you skip the study session and just direct the city manager through a consensus to start preparing the budget amendment, preparing the bid documents, and go forward on this is a discrete project.
thank you. I agree with that entirely.
So we don't need an action item on the agenda to do that?
No.
Okay.
Marcy? Oh.
Yeah.
If I call on somebody, can you just answer? Marcy, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Jim, clarification. So when I asked the question as to our policy as to what we're going to say to the residents as far as maintenance and ownership in the future, is that a determined thing at this point, or that's something that has to be established?
Well, we know the fencing that we own, and we know the fencing that they own, and we are maintaining our
Maintain
fencing
this
right now.
fence- This will remain our ownership. It doesn't become like Village of Green.
No, if we build this fence, we would maintain this fence.
I had one other one, but I forgot, so.
No, thank you, Councilmember Whitman, for calling it out. I just wanted to see process, which was answered, so I guess we just take it to vote currently, correct?
If discussion is finished.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yes,
Okay.
There's no vote, right?
Okay, I remembered.
Okay.
The pricing that we got was kind of a off time of the season, right? So we could be more than that. So it's valuable to at least get a bid, right? Because we could be more than 200,000.
Oh, we would absolutely have to bid the project,
I
yes.
know we're going to, but I'm just saying, in the intent of us having this conversation and us throwing a number around of 200 to 225, that number could be wrong too. Because when we bid that number and we came up with it, previously, we were on an off time of year, anticipating that we were getting a good deal, correct? Is that right? When we did it?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, and there's a big spread there too. One was 161, one was 120. So that, given the raw dollar amounts there, that's a pretty big spread. And the one thing I would point out here that we didn't necessarily consider is if we actually have to acquire easements. Correct, Councilmember Escobar, we do own right-of-way right now, but we have not surveyed the area either. And so we would need to do a survey and then determine what property we own, and we might have to acquire easements from property owners as well.
I think we had that discussion about the first one or two houses closest to Humphrey Court.
Yeah, none of the staff were here when this occurred, but, you know, it goes back potentially 30 years when that column was built in, and I think we all kind of openly speculated that it stopped for some reason, that either the city ran out of money, which is unlikely given the amount of fencing we built, or we couldn't reach agreement with those property owners. But definitely we have to engage them. Heard comments tonight that if we're going to move forward with this, we'll definitely need to reach out to them and at least start the conversation as well.
Is where we start with sorry, this one's really interesting. Is where we start with, is our plan on how to move this stuff forward, or do we jump in and start right at the fencing and the bidding? You know what I mean? I'm confused.
So you're back to process.
Yeah, I'm back to process. But you saw Julie had a question too, so.
Kind of the same thing. So are we, so I guess, are we talking about, if there were a study session, when would that occur on this particular project?
It depends on what information you want. If we're talking about engaging the property owners, surveying it, getting bids.
All of the above.
That's 6 weeks, 8 weeks out.
Okay.
We'll go through our procurement process. You know, we can do it as quickly as possible, but I think it'd be at least a month or two.
Can we, if we were able to reach consensus tonight, meaning 5 voting members, and give you instruction to move forward, then you could start with the surveying and bidding and everything else?
Yeah, we have on-call survey work and that we can bring on. We can clearly reach out to those property owners. And I would say in a parallel effort, we're still going to proceed with the corridor plan and the fence policy. So with some direction tonight, those things might start to dovetail. You might be seeing policy right about the same time you're looking at this specific project. I've not mapped out a schedule, but I'm theorizing that's how it might work.
All right, is there any further discussion before we kind of figure out whether we have consensus to tell Jim to bring it forward as a resolution at the next regular no, or he's saying no?
If you give direction to bring it forward, it won't be a resolution at the next meeting. There'll be, I think, 2 approvals at some future meeting. One is the contract after the bidding process, and the other is some sort of budget amendment. But that'll be well down the line.
And I can provide an update regardless in 2 weeks about where we're at, because it'll give me time to work with staff and develop a more detailed plan.
So I guess we're looking for consensus to move forward without a study session. Correct? Can somebody please clarify how we're moving forward? Because I am lost at this point.
Again, if the consensus is to move forward, the Northglenn staff will proceed forward with surveying. They'll put a contract out to bid. They'll do a budget amendment. The contract will come out in, probably 6 to 8 weeks, I think Jim indicated. And the budget amendment either will be then or shortly thereafter if it's combined with other things. It is simply staff direction to start that process. The alternative is to just do a study session, whether it is only on the Huron street fence or broader on a fence policy. But those are the 2 options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we combine 112th and Huron?
No, we can't.
That's not even
Okay.
possible.
You know, I know we can't, but how do we choose? You know what I'm saying? I guess.
Yeah, yes, I mean, I guess I would, because they're totally separate geographies, I'd recommend direction on each of them independently tonight.
So do we don't have our fence policy, right?
how can we bid out something that we don't have a fence policy for? Are we just bidding out and saying, hey, we'd like a nice wood fence down here on street, can you just give us a round ballpark? Or are we going to determine that fence is gonna look like the one on Washington and Huron? And you know what I'm saying? It seems to me like we're jumping forward and trying to push it through, rather than stepping back and studying it first, and then determining if the additional funding and everything, you know, so say we have to purchase an easement, you know, we're gonna pull it back and then go to a study session after that? I think we're putting the cart before the horse, just a little bit. But that's all I have to say.
Let me make a distinction there between policy and a spec. I think we've got a pretty good fence specification of what we would build out there. The policy is a much larger discussion of, should we build fencing?
Because it's just going to match the existing that's on the other side, right?
That-
It's just gonna wrap.
That would be our intent, yes.
Okay. So, can I see a show of hands who would like to move forward without a study session and direct Jim to move forward? I would say that's consensus. Okay.
And like I said, I will give you an update during my report in 2 weeks, let you know where we're at.
All right, thank you very much. We can move forward into communications. Jordan, I think we'll start on your end tonight.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Meredith?
Sweet, I have so many things. I'm gonna take your minutes.
Good, take them all, girl.
Alrighty, what do I have? Well, first of all, Youth Commission did such a great job. I'm so sad to see all those seniors leaving. But a shout out again to Amanda. Like, you are so good with those kids, and you're so consistently their rock. And I don't think people really understand how hard you work for them. So I appreciate it quite a bit. It's sort of this unsung hero of the Youth Commission. I did go, I think I was the only Northglenn representative at the AdCog dinner. I wanted to at least represent, although I missed pizza. The mayor of Thornton was very welcoming, but there were no agenda items. That was new to me. It was my second AdCog dinner, and I was expecting lots of information about something, and there were no agenda items. It was just, hey, thanks for coming. Have some Qdoba. So I went and smiled, and I went home. On Thursday, and just another quick little shout out, I know everyone's super busy, but if you happen to have time, Mountain Range High School, the mock trials for their freshmen, I'm gonna be working that on Thursday. Super excited about that. Part of the reason, because as many of you know, I work full-time, but part of the reason I have that day off is that is the day that Jefferson County employees are going to be at the Capitol. I feel like I'm still doing a civic duty with 9th grade mock trials, but I know many of my colleagues will be downtown, and I fully support that. And then I also wanted to just kind of shout out April 27th. Adams County School District will be closed. That's the day that they have selected to be downtown. I want to make the clarification between teachers and school staff, because this is not a teachers versus administration situation. This is all school staff in all districts, because this is about para. And so it really is important. And so just kind of a shout out for para employees and educators, and I support them and glad they're doing that work. Really quickly, a couple weeks ago, the Outside Agency Funding Committee mentioned a couple of events, and I don't know if we have anybody RSVP'd to those events. So, Joanna, could you remind me, Thursday is the Food for Hope's Empowering the Future dinner. And I can go, but I didn't know how many spots we reserved for that.
The Food for Hope dinner has 8 spots available.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's at Brittany Hill. If anyone wants to come. Sounds great. Thursday night, 6 o'clock. Food for Hope's Empowering the Future dinner. So I'm going to attend that. And then the Almost Homes Spring Out of Homelessness Gala is Friday, May 18th. And I don't remember how many.
2 seats available.
2 seats for that one. Friday, May 18th at 6 o'clock. At the Todd Creek Hall. So. And I think that's all I think.
So has anybody responded to the Todd Creek? No? Okay, so there's still two.
Still two. Did you want to go to the one? You want to go with Jordan?
I don't think person.
I love it, but I can't make it.
Okay, I'll go to that.
Yeah. We need 6 other people on Thursday if anyone wants to go.
I have another.
No takers.
You said it was at 7?
I'm sorry?
The Thursday one is at
6.
Okay, so everybody think about the dates and see, and if you can do them, get back with Joanna and let her know.
Yeah, just a couple things. I did go up to Bennett and took part in the city hall, their new city hall, the ribbon cutting. They were so excited about doing that, and it's going to be very nice addition to what they had before, you know. So, and there's a lot of development up there, so they want to have a good face, you know. So that was it. Then I went to the 17th Judicial Victim Rights Reception, and I just want to, we have 3 of our staff that were awarded an award for their work for the Ralston House, and of course our city manager, Jim Hayes, received an award, Chief May, and also David Will. So they recognized all their work. Yes. And they mentioned the perseverance that all 3 had to do in order to get this done. And I totally agree. I mean, and thank you so much. So, thank you.
The Ward 2 ward meeting is Wednesday. Yes, it is. At the M&O facility at 7 o'clock?
No. Are you going to be late?
Yeah, I will.
6:15 meet and greet.
6:15 meet and greet. We have some interesting things on the agenda. I will be there at 7. You know, Meredith, thank you very much for sharing that information, that it was the staff, because I think a lot of people, I know I didn't realize that, and I didn't know if it was just the teachers, or was it the teachers and principals, so that was really nice of you to explain that. I really do appreciate that. Other than that, I have nothing special to share. We did have our NERA meeting, and as you know, there's, our funds are a little low right now, so there's nothing new to report there.
I attended the Adams County Mayors and Commissioners Youth Awards ceremony up at the Belisari Event Hall in Brighton. Mayor Pro Tem Escobar and Councilmember Whitman were also there, as the city manager was also there that evening. A lot of the same kids that we recognize here at council received awards at this ceremony also, so it was just nice to be part of that recognition, and it was well deserved. I also attended a CASA proclamation signing and volunteer recognition event, and that was definitely the mayors and council members that could make it that night all signed a proclamation proclaiming support for the CASA mission, so it was a great event. I would like to tell you that on May 12th at 10 a.m., it is a Saturday, that will be the grand reopening of Fire Station 63, which is our Northglenn Fire Station that's located on Irma. And please come, they're going to be giving tours, and I'm sure they'll have like a really nice grand reopening event. And a reminder that May 14th through the 18th is Law Enforcement Appreciation Week. We have our candlelight vigil that week on May 17th from 7 to 8:30 in E.B. Raines Park. It is a very sobering event for fallen officers, and honestly, one of the best things that the city does, so please try and attend, because it's a very important event. So that's it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I attended pizza with the mayor. Wonderful pizza. Also attended the mayor's Commissioner Awards banquet, and again, those kids have come through some real adverse situations, and they're to be commended. I mean, they had a bunch of great kids, not just our kids, all those kids. It was just amazing. Saturday, I attended the Adams 12 Superintendent's Hispanic Advisory Council Scholarship Award Breakfast, where Adams 12, the Scholarship Council awarded 17 scholarships, and the $500 scholarships, if you go to Front Range, turns into 1,000. Front Range matches. That's pretty cool. No Arbor Day. Hillcrest is going to be closed because teachers are off. Vantage Point. The principal at Vantage Point, Alan Hollenbeck, would like his kids to be involved in the youth commission. If there's a way to, we need the contact, I'll send it to you, but he says he would like to have his kids, you know, he'd like to see that program flourish in Vantage Point. Vantage Point is an alternative school, and those kids do tremendous things too. Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, I'll be at Mountain Range High School to participate with We the People. It's a constitutional presentation. The kids do a presentation on the Constitution, and it's always a lot of fun. I know Mountain Range is another city, but a lot of our kids from the elementaries ended up there. And it's still Adams 12. That's all I have. Thank you.
And I will echo the comments around BCMCYA event. The keynote speaker, she started her presentation and saying that she was kind of nixing everything she prepared. And I don't know what she prepared, but what she came off the cuff with was a really powerful message. And I think all of the students that were there, I hope they really heard her. I think even myself, I processed so many of those great tips that she gave, and I just think she was really a great choice for that event. So Amanda, I know you play a part in that, so really good choice. I just want to also say that there were 22 students that were there. 4 of them were from Northglenn, and stepping up for Front Range Community College students, some of them receive a $500 scholarship for Front Range, and so I think that's a really wonderful start for them. I also attended Pizza with the Mayor, and it was great to see some new and young faces. So I thought that was great, and already to see that they're getting involved. So that's a positive thing. I want to also give a reminder to our business owners that you will have received at least one, but another email coming reminding you to take the business survey, which is a really important part of how the Business Retention Committee determines what type of luncheons that we host, the keynote that we bring in for the business breakfast. It's just valuable information to help us better provide additional resources to you. So please fill it out. I know we ask you every year, and the reason is the following year we use the data to be able to plan our programming. And then I guess I have 2 more things. One, fire election is May 8th, so stop by your fire station and vote. I think we have, I can't remember if it's 2 or 4, but we have a couple of folks here from Northglenn that are running for that, and so let's hold our seats there, get out and vote for that. And then lastly, I just want to say, someone who didn't have power for 27 hours, please be sure when things happen in your neighborhood, whether it's power outage or a big snowstorm, that you're checking in on your senior neighbors. I think it's important when, especially some of them are single and living there and trying to navigate and find flashlights. It was really great and warming to see my neighborhood knocking on residents' doors, giving out candles, and trying to get through that time. So just encourage you to check in on your neighbors when situations happen in your neighborhood.
Nothing for me tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of items. One, I wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to council for helping us move forward with the fence on Huron Street. I know that was a big step forward, and I really appreciate it, and I know that our residents do as well, so thank you. Secondly, I want to say well, I want to challenge Councilmember Brown as well as Councilmember Downing to find a fantastic addition to the Citizens Affairs Advisory Board at your upcoming ward meeting. I think that Ward 2 is the only ward not currently represented on that board, and I know that a lot of the folks that we've already appointed are really excited to get to work. So I hope you're able to help us find somebody great to serve.
We'll try our best.
You got it. I have no concern.
I'm thinking of somebody right away.
Perfect.
No.
And then I also wanted to say thank you to Mayor Dodge for trying new different times and different days for your Mayor on the Move. I think it's really great, and I appreciate you trying to reach people where they are. And then let's see. I have two more things. I wanted to say publicly congratulations to Northglenn High School Principal Sherry Blunt, who was recently named Principal of the Year. It was a really big deal, and I would love for staff and council both to figure out how we are celebrating her and giving her the congratulations that she absolutely deserves. And then finally, the Hoya Foundation and the Adams County Board of Commissioners are jointly sponsoring 3 $1,000 scholarships for the 2018-2019 academic year for women ages 17 through 35 interested in pursuing careers in the transportation or construction industries. And currently, women make up only 8% of the workforce in construction. The deadline to apply is May 31st, and anybody who is interested in learning more can let me know, and I'll happily share the application. It's pretty quick and painless, and I'd love to see some Northglenn folks pick that up. And then I promised the very last thing I wanted to say was thank you to Councilmember Leidy for raising up and elevating the fact that our teachers, our paid staff who are in our schools every single day working with our children are walking out, and they're going on strike. And for goodness sakes, it makes a lot of sense. I have a couple of statistics that I want to share with all of you because I find them very startling in terms of the way that we value and pay our teachers and our staff. I can't pull them up, I can't find them now. Just know that when it comes to teacher pay, Colorado is in the in the bottom 5. 46th in the nation for what our teachers are paid. And that means that a lot of teachers, a lot of administrative staff take on second jobs in order to make a living and to pay their bills and keep a roof over their head. And that to me is really concerning. Our state does not fund education in the way that we should. And I think that our state legislature has a real obligation and an opportunity to figure out how we do a better job. And so to all of the teachers who are striking on Friday, on April 27th, I say I stand with you. You deserve better. Thank you.
Can I clarify really quickly? I don't want the message to be that people are striking.
Okay, they are walking out.
Yes, so, and actually, the logistics of that are that they are taking personal leave. And if they don't have personal leave, they will be at work. But if they have personal time to take, they're going to take personal leave to be civically active together. And because of the labor shortage, the district is closed. So I just want to make sure people understand that there is no teacher strike.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thanks for sharing about the time off, too. I don't think people really, I know I don't. I mean, I have several friends that are teachers and several that are counselors, so I get the underpay, and I get all that. I've bought enough school supplies to have my own school. But I don't think a lot of people understand those little things. They think that maybe the teachers are walking out and they're still getting paid.
Yeah, and it is happening all over the state, and so the Colorado Education Association, the CEA, is organizing it statewide, and so different districts picked days that made sense to their calendar. And so I know Inglewood did it on the 16th. Like I said, Jeffco's doing it on the 26th. DPS and Adams 12 will be on the 27th. But each district is making decisions that are best for its community. So for example, DPS is just doing an afternoon because they want to make sure that they have breakfast and lunch for their students still available. There's a lot of thought that has gone into it. And I think, and where teacher pay is an issue, the current issue is para and the retirement system. And so that's an everybody. And just to clarify, because I felt like this was something that was also misunderstood, if you are earning para, you aren't earning Social Security. So teachers don't get Social Security and then their retirement, they get the para retirement instead. And so if para is underfunded, or if they're messing with the funding, it's a huge concern.
Thank you. Joanna, you have any communications this evening?
Other than a quick apology for time traveling during the roll call tonight. I have nothing else, so
It was
sorry
good. It
about
was
that.
comic relief.
Something like that.
No worries.
Nothing else.
Jim?
Yeah, just a couple things. We heard that Arbor Day is, well, it was last week, but our event with Hillcrest is postponed because District 12 is closed. Also, friendly reminder that some of you have still not filled out your Survey Monkey for the retreat. I think Susan told me that there's 5 that she has seen back. And I know we had some spam challenges. We hopefully have cleared that up with Mr. Lair, but please try to fill that out. It was regarding the retreat debrief and the actual retreat itself, I should say. So if you give us some feedback on that, we'll give you those results as soon as we get them. I wanted to point out one other thing tonight and get some direction. Hopefully this is much easier than fencing. So I was talking with Councilmember Wilford last week regarding welcome packets. And one of the things that we had talked about for the 2019 budget was creating a full-blown welcome packet we would mail out to residents. Since this is going to involve a couple more than a couple hours of staff work, I wanted to just get some direction to implement a program for this year, and then we can enhance that as we look at next year's budget. And I just want to give you a few highlights of what we're thinking of and kind of get your thumbs up on it. So with your direction tonight, we're prepared to create a postcard that could be mailed out to all new residents. And we would do that as frequently as monthly if we needed to. We estimate that we have about 1,000 new people annually that come and reside in the city. So about 1,000 people in terms of a turnover. Probably about 2/3 of those, or 60%, are single-family homes or homes that they've got a separate utility bill. The rest are actually in the apartment complexes on a master meter. So it's really hard for us to mail directly to those folks. But if you want to proceed with this, it's something we would provide to the apartment complexes so they could let people know that we're welcoming them into the community. The idea is that we would send out a postcard, and in the meantime, we would be developing a online welcome packet. I already met with Kim today. She's actually got some concepts that she had pulled out from something several years ago, and you may see some former council members on this, but this could be translated very easily into an online form, but then is set up to be printed in kind of a brochure style, so it'd be very economical to mail out. We're just not quite ready to go live with this yet because we're still in the development process. The idea is that once we had that developed, we could very easily amend the postcard. It would be coming from all council members, and there'd just be an online link to that welcome packet. So it'd be very economical. If we did 1,000 cards a year, it'd be about $300 to produce, about $500 a year to mail them. Then in 2019, we'd go a little more robust with it in that we would actually budget for these type of resident guides, get them mailed out. We would still, of course, include the online link with them, but we estimate that could be, $2,000, $3,000 at this point. I know I thought it was a higher estimate earlier, but after looking at the numbers, it's really only $2,000 or $3,000 moving forward. So it would give the opportunity to drive traffic to the website. Which I think would be a really good opportunity. And Kim's got some really good metrics that she's trying to track right now. And so just wanted to get your authorization to proceed with that. And I would defer to Councilmember Wilford if you have anything to add, since this was your idea to push this forward.
No, just a heartfelt thank you to staff for working with me and really coming up with something that works this year, so that we can let our residents know as they're coming into Northglenn that we care and we're happy that they're here and that we're ready and willing to be a resource for them. So thank you for coming up with this. I think that you and I went a couple of rounds, and I think this is the best option, so thank you.
I just wanted to ask the question. Is that going to be, okay, and maybe I'm just thinking of it too small. Is that going to cover our renters and everything? And then if so, how do we get that information?
I'll defer to Jim for that
So,
question.
so one of our challenges is we have a database that we know every single address in the city by ward. And so when we mail out your ward postcards, we know resident at this address, and we mail those out. Utility billing is a little more challenging in that we can't break it out by ward. So the idea is that this would be going out to all new residents that set up a new utility billing account, and we estimate that at 600 or 700 addresses per year. The apartments are largely on master meters, and so the residents don't set up their own account. And so our idea is that we'd reach out to the apartment complexes, give them a stack of postcards, and then when people move in, they would be able to hand those to people. And next year when we develop the welcome packets, we give them a stack of welcome packets so they can hand out.
Thank you. I think that's a great idea. It's a great start. Thank you for taking that on.
Is everyone on board for moving forward with this idea?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, good.
Great, thank you. Then I said one other thing. I will be out of the office starting tomorrow, returning on May 1st. And Chief May has graciously agreed to be our acting city manager during that time period. Yes, I'll buy him lunch. So. Thank you.
Corey?
Nothing this evening.
All right, thank you. We will move to the second public invited to be heard, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Statements should be related to an item previously addressed by council during the meeting. Come on forward, Tim. How are you?
Good. How are you? Honored Mayor and City Council of Northglenn. My name is Tim Morgan, and I am the Director of Community Relations. I've been sitting back in the, for too long. For Be Good Ventures, we're located at 11450 here in Cherokee Street in Northglenn, right off Huron, by the way, and we enjoy the improvements that's already been, and we hope to see more. That being said, I am also a proud member and the webmaster for our local Rotary Club, and I just wanted to say a personal, heartfelt thank you for the city's continued involvement with our food drive that we're wrapping up this week. We have a donation bin over at the rec center. If any residents wants to come with the last donations, we will be collecting the last donations later this week. Also did want to mention that we were very proud and lucky to have Congressman Jared Polis visit our location last Friday, and since there is a lot of new faces on the council, I also did wanted to extend a personal invitation to every one of you. If you ever wanted to come see our, I think still the only cultivation of cannabis facility in Northglenn, then please reach out. I know the city clerk has my information. We would be very happy to see any of you who would have an interest in seeing what it would be about. So thank you.
So Tim, how did Jared Polis pick Be Good?
We've decided to help Jared Polis in his campaign to become the next Democratic candidate for the Democratic Party. And for the last month or so, I have tried to steer his campaign a little more towards my industry. You will also see my pretty face in some campaign videos. They'll be hitting the floor soon. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I saw the article in Westward. It was
Sure.
good publicity for you. So
Both ways.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. Seeing nobody else come forward, we are adjourned, and I will motion to move into executive session pursuant to Section 4.5, Parent B of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for legal consultation and advice, 1, regarding personnel and council policies, and 2, regarding a notice of claim filed against the city.
Second.
Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
Got a log. We'll close that vote, and the motion to adjourn to executive session passes unanimously.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute recess.